Hi guys, I'm Rohan, and I'll be presenting my joint work with Sarish and Karthik from Duke University. Karthik is also a researcher at Espresso Systems. Um, yeah, so the work is still very early stage in the sense that we have tried to model transactions and come up with different waiting games pre-confers can play and what and try and yeah, I think so. We've tried to model the dominant strategy for a pre-confer and also come up with a pricing function, or at least try to come up with a pricing function. Um, and for this work, sorry, one second. Yeah, for this work, uh, the context that we've used in terms of like how we are thinking about transactions, what type of transactions uh, exists are in terms of high fidelity DeFi applications, for example, on-chain order books, where market makers really require low latency to place and cancel orders, and they're ready to pay a little bit of a pre-con fee for this, and not inclusion pre-cons as such. Right. So uh, before we start, I also want to touch upon what we don't cover in this work. We have not really thought about the fair exchange problem. That is, there is. It's really hard to essentially tell um, how if a pre-confer did not really receive a pre-conf request, or are they delaying it themselves. So it's a hard problem to solve inherently, and we have not really touched upon this in our current work. But although we have thought of a number of ways, a pre-confer can have reputation-based systems to do this, or also while sending a transaction, a request can also include some sort of a Merkle root, and also provide some sort of a slippage tolerance in the sense that the transaction has to be included five within five transactions after a given Merkle root. So these are different ways, although we've not really worked on it in detail, right? We've also not accounted for block gas limit in the sense that uh, for we are for high fidelity DeFi applications, we assume the throughput will be very high, and also probably L2s, for example, Mega ETH have a high transaction throughput, and block gas limit is not is not a blocker, is what we have assumed, but we will probably be accounting for this and in future work, right? Um, so I want to touch upon what the model assumptions are before we dive into the model itself. Um, so we define a MEV opportunity as MEV from relative ordering of transactions, and not MEV from not JIT MEV. That is, you can see a really badly formed transaction and immediately sandwich it, which can be done either way. But what we define as a MEV opportunity, which really impacts our model, is relative ordering of transaction. That is, probably a preconfer, instead of providing a preconf right now to a particular transaction, can wait for a time W, and then reorder transaction T2 before transaction T1, and then extract more MEV. An example of this would be you see a buy transaction on a ETH USDC pool, which is very well formed, and because of which the price goes up. But 5 seconds later, a validator sees that in the mempool there's a transaction which has a very high slippage tolerance, which is also a buy transaction. And because you've already given a precon to the previous transaction, you're not able to extract as much MEV from this second transaction as you could have. So that is what we define relative ordering of transactions as. Uh, so about MEV opportunities, we assume that MEV opportunities are follow a Poisson distribution and have a rate lambda. This which is known to the preconfer beforehand through some statistical method, etc. Uh, so yeah, like we used Poisson distribution because it captures the stochastic process, like stochastic nature of a MEV opportunity in itself. Um, Also about priority fee, proposers earn priority fee linearly in the sense that over a long time. Um, um, so yeah, over a long time, every proposer expects to make similar profits using priority fee from uninformed flow, which is just given to the validator for inclusion. This is exactly why having proposers randomly selected for slots makes sense, because essentially expected profits of each proposer remain same. Although this does not directly impact our model, but we wanted to include this because we did not want to lose generality of the problem. Um, so another thing is precon fee. Um, the other proposers earn an additional fee, F, for giving preconfs. This, again, like I said, has to be within low latency. And if a preconfer does give a preconf to a transaction, the transaction itself is ready to pay a tip for this. Um, we assume that for our model, we assume that the preconfer sets a minimum F beforehand. That is, a transaction will only be given preconf only if the precon fee is at least F or more than that, right? Um, Another assumption that we make is also about the uh, about how expected MEV is modeled. We assume that the expected MEV decreases exponentially. That is, in the sense that if I give a preconf to a transaction today, right now, the MEV opportunity, the expected MEV that I can accrue from a transaction which is related to this particular transaction would decrease exponentially. Um, the the results of the work remain the same irrespective of how the MEV opportunity decreases. If you decrease it harmonically as well, like, the result does not change. We have chosen a larger and a more constrained decrease because what essentially decreasing MEV opportunity does is you don't want the proposers to be giving away a lot of precons. If the expected MEV opportunity is not really decreasing by a lot, you see that the proposers will end up giving a lot of precons, which probably is not the case in real world, right? Yeah, so essentially the justification is that it accounts for the diminishing returns after once you have made changes to state, right? Uh, so diving into the model itself, so like I said earlier, the proposer decides at the time at the beginning of their slot that they're going to wait for at least wait for a given time W before providing precons, and make a like at time W, if they will either give a preconf or they see a MEF transaction and extract this. Um, at a future time, I will also explain how this does not lose generality, in the sense that if W is equal to the block time, which is what proposers do today, then the proposer is not never giving precons and just waiting for the whole slot to end and capturing all the MEV opportunities. Yeah, so essentially this is why we have set a time W is because this kind of has a middle ground, in the sense of you either collect precons for time W or you accumulate MEV over this whole time, right? So yeah, so an overview about Poisson distribution itself is Poisson distribution describes the probability of a given number of events occurring over a given time. It also assumes that there is a constant rate of arrival, in the sense that MEV opportunities are arriving at some rate lambda. And the probability mass function of this is as follows. And what this is if I am seeing what's the probability of me seeing I MEVable transactions in W time is given by this probability function. And yeah, so arrival lambda is the arrival rate of MEV opportunities. And W itself, like if you for a generalized probability mass function, it is like you replace W with T. It's essentially like over large T, or like any T, I mean. But W is the waiting time before which the preconfer gives the preconf. Also, for a slot time of T, the preconfer either plays repeated games. That is, the preconf plays a repeated game T by W floor of that number of times, because you can essentially give preconfs that many times because you're waiting for W, and like each mini slot is W long, and yeah. So essentially, the preconfer plays a repeated game. Of course, if W equal to T, then like it's just a single game. Um, yeah, so I think if we sum the whole if we sum the whole expected uh, probability into the total uh, MEV opportunity that we are seeing, and infinitely sum this, that is like what is the probability of me seeing one MEV opportunity uh, plus the probability of me seeing two MEV opportunity, and so on till infinity. So you get the expected MEV opportunity, and that comes out to be this. So also, like I said before, because this is a repeated game, and the MEV opportunity itself decreases exponentially over the number of preconfs you've given in the past. You see that the nth slot of the preconf has like an expected MEV of v by k par n, and so essentially over the whole slot, you're gonna end up seeing you're gonna end up summing this whole thing up to find the expected MEV over the whole block proposal time. Um, right. Yeah, I guess. So summing that up, essentially, like it's a basic geometric progression. You sum that up, you get this. And n is of course t by w. T by w because we're playing the game repeatedly. And if w equal to 2, it's just once. Um, right. So another thing is this was the expected MEV a proposer would accrue over the whole block time. Uh, the proposer can also accrue some amount of precon fee. That is, because the proposer is accruing, giving precons once every W seconds, you're going to accrue F into T by W as the precon fee. And yeah, so total priority fee depends on the frequency of the precons. Higher F kind of incentivizes more frequent precons for the proposer. I think we're going to kind of dive into this a little later. But yeah, so if you look at the whole model, this is what you see. The total expected profit a proposer expects to make is the total amount of expected MEV profits they have accumulated over the whole block time, and plus the amount of fee they're able to generate using precons, plus of course like the priority fee that they accrue for inclusion, right? Like that is what is there in today's world. So yeah, so moving on to like generalization. Our model does not lose any generality from today's Ethereum world, in the sense that if you set the precon fee to 0, the expected profit is just from the MEV and from accruing the priority fee for over the slot time, right? And if you kind of plot this graph or just differentiate the expected profit over with with W, the time you're going to wait before you provide precons, you will see that it's an increasing function, that the differential is greater than 0, and there is no real incentive to provide precons or like kind of provide any sort of mini block guarantees earlier if there are no precon fees that is being given, which is the case in today's Ethereum world, and it's just an increasing graph. And of course, if the precon fee is greater than 0, we end up seeing some interesting results. What does happen is if you're able to see, if you're able to generate a lot of precon transaction, that is, the demand for these precon transactions are very high. Just by the sheer number of these precon transaction, you're able to make a lot of profit. And if you're able to give precons very regularly, the expected amount of returns you get by just doing this is almost infinity. So what we see is plotting a graph shows that like as long as there is some expected large enough expectation of demand for precon transactions, it is profitable for the preconfer to provide precons constantly. But this kind of dips after some threshold. Um, uh, Going back to the previous formula, you can't like really analytically solve this in the sense that you can't come up with any sort of critical ratios to prove that what should be the ratio between, for example, the priority fee versus expected MEV, for when it becomes unprofitable to provide precons. But if with mathematical methods, you can probably find out the critical ratio. Another interesting thing is if you see that lambda is the rate of arrival of MEV opportunities, with a large lambda, which is 0.2, you see that the time, the demand for preconfs should be very high. Only then does it become profitable for the preconfer to provide precons. Whereas when you see the preconf price F increasing over time, I mean, if you increase the preconf fee, if the proposer decides to increase the minimum preconf fee F, you see that the demand can be fairly lower. And how we see this is that instead of us finding out what the instead of the proposer initially deciding what the expected W is, they can essentially see, like, using some sort of statistical method, see like what the demand for preconf transactions are and price the preconf appropriately based on that. That's basically it. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. So wouldn't it intuitively be more optimal to wait for some time and then provide a lot of preconfs basically in one shot? Did you consider this?
Right, like I said, that would make sense. But like I said, this is execution preconfs in the sense that while producing transactions, the transaction also has a Merkle root stating that I want an execution at least at max 5 transactions from this Merkle root. So if you accumulate a lot of transaction, new preconf transactions won't be able to be generated because they really don't know the new Merkle root, right?
Okay, thanks.
Do we have any more questions?
Hi. Sorry, I just wanted to ask, do you have some sort of, I don't know, Google Doc or some programming model to see how it works in in digits and then the numbers? Probably it would be great to share and play with that model.
Right,
Thank
yeah. Right now, we don't have any Google Docs. Happy to share the slides after this. But also, we're going to probably publish an ETH research post. So we will. I can share the slides with you if that helps.
Sure. Thank you. It would be great. Thank you.
And the simulation code as well.